And hello good people, if you're interested, I'm Tommy Kelly and this is Adventures in Woo Woo. And in this episode I want to talk a bit about what do you actually want and knowing what you actually want and how helpful that could be. So, this whole idea of what you want is deceivingly harder than it seems, in that you would think that everyone kind of knows what they want. And it's my kind of contention that no, we don't. We certainly know to a large extent what we don't want, but whether we know what we actually want is, you know, up for debate. Some people are very good at this type of thing where they know exactly what they want. They've laid out the 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 25-year plan, and, you know, broken down into smaller goals and really good at this kind of goal setting and know what the overall picture of their life should be or where they want to end up and all that. I'm not like that. I've never been like that. I've had very kind of vague outlines of what I wanted, and which I think was a hindrance in many ways to me, but perhaps led me into areas that I wouldn't probably have ended up. Some, you know, not in a good way. Some of it wasn't good, some of it was good. My kind of feeling with all of this has been, or my approach to it is very similar to how I approach art in general. And as I see art and magic being pretty much synonymous and the exact same thing, just the canvas is different. I kind of feel that my approach to what I'm going to do with my life is the same as what I do with art, whereas I try as much as possible to stay out of the way of it and you know, allow it to unfold in a way to be the kind of the tool through which these things manifest, rather than, you know, being the kind of dictator of how these kind of go. When I'm doing art, say when I'm writing a story, or when I was doing the graphic novels, or the 47, or any of these things, all the same applied. I was kind of, in a way, trying to channel these things. I'm not channeling the Abraham Hicks thing. I didn't put on a funny voice, or I didn't think I was an alien from a different, you know, from the Pleiades or any of these things, but just kind of, you know, if there is a thing like idea space, as Alan Moore talks about, or, you know, as Jung talks about, this collective unconscious and all of these things, and that ideas of people rather than people have ideas, and that whole thing that Elizabeth Gilbert talks about in that very famous TED talk, where, you know, like things just arrive looking for people. So I kind of had that kind of thought of that I should just, in a sense, channel it in, you know, not in the New Age sense, but and allow it to come through me. And as much as possible, not try to dictate or not try to force or not try to bring an awful lot of myself into it. Or even though it's like, it's mostly myself, and it's always going to be coloured by what I do or who I am. And just let it come out and see what it is, you know, let it birth itself in whatever way it wants to show itself. And that very much happened with the Holy Numbers, where I had an idea, but I just kind of went with it and see what developed, and the characters started talking themselves and had their own direction and their own kind of goals. You know, they were more certain about what they wanted to do about their lives than I was about my own. And very much with them as well, even though that was a bit more structured in that there was certainly a magical hypersigil element to it and a goal to it. But I allowed it to unfold in its own way and present itself in the way it wanted to be, rather than trying to pigeonhole it into something. So that's kind of has been my approach to my life in general and my goals. And I'm not sure it's working as well as it is with art, and I don't think it's probably necessarily the best approach. When you kind of just let things happen, number one, I think things happen slower, because, you know, you're rudderless, you're directionless, and you're not going, you know, you don't know whether you're heading towards the mountain or away from the mountain, because you don't know, you haven't decided what the mountain is. And so letting these things kind of happen. I remember when I was younger and I wanted to be a rock star, as is my want, that there still was no kind of plan around it. It was like there was this kind of vague notion of being a band, obviously, or solo as I was for a long while, record some albums, record some songs, play some gigs, see what happens. And that was kind of my thing of see what happens, as I think where things go horribly wrong, because what happens invariably is that nothing happens. And you find that everyone else is doing exactly the same. And I think the artist thing as well is that they're not... I was actually talking this with a friend of mine, an art friend of mine, and we were talking about the fact that artists in general are so shit at business, you know, and it's just because our brains are wired that way. Some are brilliant at it, obviously, and some are really good at it. Like Todd McFarlane is brilliant as both an artist and the business mind, probably even more businessy than artistic. But it just doesn't seem to be something that... when you switch on the certain creativity part of your brain, or this kind of thing, when you're in touch with that, say, this other part isn't necessarily engaged in the same way, or you find it boring. I find it boring, I think, more than I could probably engage with it more and understand it more, business in general, intellectually, but I wouldn't have the kind of flair for it that some people, you know, naturally just have, this kind of business sense or this marketing sense or this kind of promotion sense. So it's kind of, that has been my approach, and it's like kind of trying to think of, well, what do I want? Why am I doing these videos? What is my ultimate goal for it? How would I know I'm succeeding? What would it look like to succeed? And my initial goal for these videos and these doing the podcast and the website was to become open about these ideas that I've been having for years and been kind of shy about or nervous about talking or being closed because, as I've said before, and mostly in the podcast, or not really in the videos, most of the people I hung around with or was interacting with were pretty much reductionist, materialist atheists. And you can't talk about this kind of stuff in that kind of setting because you're immediately shouted at or argued with, or I find there's an aggressiveness in the attack of these people. That's my experience. Not all are like that. I mean, I find that obviously there's the opposite side of the coin. I find that from, you know, serious Christians and Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons, whatever. But less the aggression, I suppose. The Catholicism has a bit of the aggression, but the other things don't. Like Harry Christians definitely want you to be Harry Christian, but there isn't that anger or that aggression that you get from reductionist materialist atheists, particularly online. Anyway, where would we be in these videos if I didn't go off on some tangent? So I was kind of wanted to talk about these things, and I wanted to be open. I wanted to stop hiding, in a sense. I wanted to stop being occultish, and I wanted to come out and just be open about it. And of course, I've done that, and I was by doing one of them and kind of announcing, like Alan Moore did on his 40s Better, announcing to the world that he's a magician. Once you announce to the world, that's your goal done. That's it, you know. So it's like you're just a continuation of that. Like by doing more podcasts, you're just kind of, you know, adding to the whole thing. But the actual goal of what I wanted, I've done in a sense. Now, the second goal, of course, was also I wanted to get better at doing it and better at articulating it and better at understanding myself and my thoughts around all these things. So that is an ongoing concern. And that's something that I hope to retain throughout, where it's this kind of self-discovery, this mission of self-discovery through doing videos and podcasts and talking to cameras and coming out and walking around different locations and all of these things and trying to get my head round the different thoughts. You know, go read some books, go hang out with, you know, some different people online, different ideas or different kind of trains of thought or different modes of thinking or different magical ideas or whatever. And then kind of, you know, toss them around my head and see whatever, and then try to explain them to other people or, you know, talk through them through videos. I find that, especially when I was teaching, when I taught guitar for a while after my wanting to be a rock star. It's getting very heavy rain now, so it is Ireland. That I found that through the whole years of just playing in bands and writing songs, learning other songs, all of these things, it wasn't until I actually had to go and teach other people that I really understood music and the guitar and all of those things. Now, I probably wasn't technically as good or hadn't the speed because I wasn't practicing that way, but I had a more holistic approach to it. So I find that by talking out loud and trying to explain things to people, you're explaining them to yourselves. You have to understand it in order to explain it, and the process of kind of getting it out from in here clarifies the entire thing. So that were my only two kind of goals. I'm kind of sitting around the last kind of while because I've had a number of things that kind of come up about that. Is this something you want? Like in a sense, when you do YouTube, people want to be, for the most part, a lot of people do it, you know, to be an influencer, or to be famous, or to be known, or to be whatever it is. That's a huge element of this, and I'm not sure I want that. In fact, I know I don't want that, but there's obviously a part of me that does feel comfortable enough in that kind of surroundings, or I wouldn't do it at all. But there is a large part of me that needs to retreat from all of these things, and I wouldn't be interested in, say, doing a talk in front of people. Like, I don't want to lecture or do, or you know, any of that kind of thing. That's not what I want to do, in the sense that it wouldn't get me the result I want, which is I wouldn't. You can't go to a lecture or get people to come to a talk where you're just trying to work out the idea of the topic as you're doing it, which I can do with these videos, and that's kind of my goal with it. Whereas doing the lectures or doing that kind of thing doesn't have that, so that's not something I want to do. so it's just come to this thing of what am I doing? Why am I doing it? I remember when I joined BOTA, which is Builders of the Addendum, which is a Paul Foster Case's kind of tarot Kabbalah teaching school, esoteric occult teaching school. You get lessons in the mail. It's all very cool. To a point, he's slightly homophobic. Slightly, he is. You can't be slightly homophobic. He's homophobic, and he has some other questionable ideas that you only get towards the end of his teachings. But you could say, a man of his time, blah blah blah. Is that a good enough excuse? And the very first thing you do is this thing called the 7 steps, where you have to work out, what do you want? What do you want? What do I want from life? And so this is the kind of question I'm pondering at the minute. What do I want my next 5 years to be? My 10 years? My 25? When I die, when I look back, what do I want to have achieved and all of that? And I don't know the answers yet, so we're just kind of, there's no kind of grand reveal at the end where I go, right, here's the future of this YouTube channel or Adventures in Woo and all these things. I don't know yet. There's much a likelihood that I don't do any of this as there is that I up my game and try to make it bigger or whatever. I do feel at some point I'm definitely going to withdraw from this world and go off and be like that hermit in the cabin in the woods, like Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. There's a reference very few yous will probably get. Yeah, so I have to work it out, and it'd be interesting to hear other people. Do they have a kind of a similar approach to life, or they're just kind of going with it? Is it working for you? Is that kind of thing working for you? For the most part, it works for me. Just I think things happen slower. But what about people who are you really good at setting goals? Do you know exactly where you want to be in 5 years? Do you find that useful, or do you find that kind of limiting as well? What's the kind of thought? Do you find the question of what do you want hard to answer? Or are you like me, well, I know what I don't want. Which the thing is, that's my point around, I kind of, while there's part of me wants to do this and express myself and be known, I suppose, and be seen and being heard, there's another part that massively, equally, wants to be left alone. So there's a huge dichotomy between those two type of ideas that I don't know if it works, if it gets bigger. Say the channels or the podcasts or the website are huge. That kind of, you can't have the other need met of wanting to be left alone. So I don't know if that's a wise decision for me to try and, or to aim to be, bigger. Or I like kind of the idea of being famous in a really tiny niche, or well-known, and look, famous, the word is so stupid. Kind of known. I like being known. I like people interacting with people. I like the fact that people can come to my Discord thing and we can chat about all these things, and there's kind of a, what you're getting into by, because I set it up or whatever. There's something that's very kind of rewarding, or kind of, I don't know, it makes you feel cool or special or something. But then there's the whole thing that when that gets big or whatever, this thing of responsibility to other people. Like, I'm not, in the sense of the Gordon White sense, the Rune Soup sense of being invincible, where you've got to a point where you're totally convinced of the reality of magic, of that reductionist materialism isn't true and all that. I am not there. And there is a point, or there's a thing in me that go, well, I'm not fully convinced that magic is real. I find it useful, and so that's good enough for now. And I find it really interesting and very rewarding and all of these things. But I don't want the responsibility of other people, of being that, for saying to other people, oh yes, magic. And go, but you said magic was real. And I was going, no. And I think that as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, that responsibility becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And again, I don't know if I want that. So that's very kind of roundabout way of going, I have no idea what I want. I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I doing all of these things? There's parts of me that obviously wants this, and there's other huge parts of me that doesn't want it at all. So yeah, that's what I have to work out. So let me know the kind of things you do to find out what you want rather than what you don't want. Well, how do you goal set? What kind of things do you put in place that allow you to develop as a person without getting lost in kind of, the rat race or the goal itself? And one I want to know, how do you set goals or develop life plans that allow for the fact that you have to grow with these things and not be kind of hindering yourself or making things worse? Even if you set goals and you have, everything broken down, do you still have to have a bit of chaos in there, because there's a part of you that doesn't really know what you want, or that you mightn't be getting out of your comfort zones, and that you may really enjoy something that you would never intellectually put down on your goal setting. Does that make sense? In that, how do you allow the chaos even when you're being strategic and stringent with your planning in your goal setting? So tell me how you do all that. And if you know the answer to what I actually want with my life, will you put your answer on a postcard and send it to me, or just leave a comment down below. And join me in the Discord. I don't talk enough about that. It's a wonderful community, and we're all trying to get off Facebook as much as possible, and have just this dedicated, better space, whatever. Discord will probably turn into as evil of a thing as Facebook is, but for right now, it's really cool. Really good chats, really good community, really good people, lots of top talent, lots of people really know their stuff. And if that's something you would be interested in, come over and say hello. Links below this video. So, good people of the internet, until next time, be well.